Good afternoon, all Actions for Justice and Americans Against Foreclosures groups. I'm Ed. I'm coming to you live. It's very cold where we're at right now. I hope you're all staying warm. I'm trying to do an update now for all our members regarding the situation of foreclosures on mortgages, and then, unfortunately, having to talk about evictions. Now, this is a very, very, very touchy subject with all Americans, and I think with peoples around the world as well that are watching what is happening in the United States, which is such a serious matter, and yet Department of Justice of the United States is not taking it that way. The judges, I don't know how many there are in the United States, should really become aware of the social need for a more fair, just society. Just because you bought a home or built your home, maybe now 20, 30 years ago, and you obviously didn't have the financial resources to pay it cash or to pay whoever had any kind of lien on the loan or on the home or on the property that you bought. So you didn't have all the money, so you took out a loan with one of the banks back then. Now we're talking 30 years ago, and finance was totally different then. In any case, you went to a lender, you went to what's called an originator, and I myself I've worked in banking for 40 years, and I have had experience in different companies originating loans, and then afterwards going into what was called loss mitigation and still called loss mitigation, trying to avoid having to foreclose on those loans that were not paid back timely. So in other words, when you took out a loan, you signed a contract for 20 or 30 years to pay back a certain amount that you took out in monthly, payments over time and accruing interest. You were paying interest and the payments. Now, these loans were structured in such a way that you'd probably just pay the interest at the beginning of the loan, and then the last part of the loan, your payments would go to principal. That's what most of the loans were designed to do. Now, some of these loans have become what's called predatory. Predatory means that you were making your payments and you were actually ahead of your payments, and instead of the money that you paid going to pay the principal and the interest, it was only going to pay interest. And that's a big problem. Why? Because if you didn't make that interest-only payment, then it would all start accruing back onto the principal. So at the end of making payments during 20 years, instead of you having cut down the loan to 30% of what it was, you actually had more than what you started with of the loan. That's what's called predatory. Okay, you owed more than what you took out to begin with. So this situation has become very, very dangerous and explosive for homeowners in the United States and across the world, because now suddenly you find yourself in a situation where you've retired, maybe you've taken an early retirement, or now you've retired after working, you have limited sources of income now, you're on fixed income, and there's no way you can make those payments of the interest and the principal. Apart from that, you have property taxes in many states, not all states, but you have very high property taxes, which you also have to pay. And apart from that, you have to pay property insurance. All that adds up to a lot of money every month, anywhere between $1,000 in the least amount a monthly for families, up to, let's say, $4,000 or $5,000 a month. And that in the year 2024 is still a lot of money, become a lot of money. And that's a payment that you have to make any month, every single month. Whether you're well or not, you're healthy or not, you're fixed income or not. And we don't know many American families that can afford a payment of $3,000 or $4,000 a month just to stay in your home. So now we're in a situation where the alleged banks that originally originated the loans, well, they're long and gone. And they've assigned the loan to some other alleged parties, which are called servicers, or the ones that collect your payments every month. But what we're finding every day more and more in the United States is these companies that call themselves servicers have been collecting on those loans, but have not been sending the payments and applying them correctly to the principal of the loan, which is owned by other banks, so-called beneficiaries of the note. I'm sure you've heard this terminology, because basically what you do is sign two documents when you take out a loan. You're signing a promissory note to pay back a certain amount of money with interest. And then there's the other document that's called a mortgage or a deed of trust. And what that document says is that if you do not repay the amounts that were stipulated in the note in timely fashion, then they would turn the deed of trust over to an alleged trustee, another third party here, that would go ahead and start what's called the foreclosure process, whereby the lender wants their money back. In this case, the servicer would be acting on behalf of the beneficiary of the note, and they would want to call the loan and make you either pay the amount that's in arrearage that's owed, which in many cases is impossible, or refinance the property and pay them back, which, like I say, depending on the situation, you're in your financial situation, where you live in the United States, where your property is located, and if you have value and have made money on the value of the property, it's gone up, and you have equity in the property, then you can go ahead and try to get a loan and refinance it and pay off the first lenders. Now, that's not possible. And for many other reasons, too, because you've fallen behind, which they're reporting to the credit bureaus. Now you have bad credit, so no lender will touch you. They will not do a loan unless you go to hard money lenders, which start at 10% interest, which makes it even more difficult for you. So now you as a family, you're stuck in a home that you can no longer afford, but yet after all these years of paying into a loan, you do have some equity left, but you don't have any possibility of making monthly mortgage payments. So you request what's called a loan modification. Now, what's happening with the loan modifications is the party that is acting as the servicer, they don't have the authority to modify the loan in many cases. Or the beneficiaries of the note don't want to modify the loan for different reasons. So all this is coming to light now, and our homeowners are stuck in their properties. They can't make the payments. They're being foreclosed on. If they're not already in the foreclosure process, the process usually takes anywhere between 3 months and 3 years from the moment it begins. And it begins with what's called a notice of default, a notice that you receive from the alleged trustee that's now been assigned to the deed of trust, or from the servicer, or from the party that's trying to collect on this debt, which they ultimately are debt collectors. And they send you a notice saying that you are behind on your payments, you're in default of a loan, and therefore they're going to start the process of foreclosure. That's called the notice of default. Most cases, they also do it by publication, but at that point in time, your credit bureaus know that you're in default on the mortgage, your neighbors know you're in default on the mortgage, and the whole world knows that you're in default on the mortgage because they publish it. So that ruins your credit. Now you have ruined credit as well, to add insult to injury, and it just gets worse from there. Because now, approximately within a month or 3 months, if you don't make a payment or you don't come in agreement with the alleged servicer or party that's interested in foreclosing on this loan and ultimately selling it and evicting your family, then it proceeds. And the next step would be for them to file what's called a notice of trustee sale. So that's the next step in this whole process. Now, once you get that notice of trustee sale, everything goes much faster, because basically what they're telling you is in a certain time frame, which is usually between a month or 2 months, the trustee is going to auction off and sell your property. Now, depending the state you're on, it will be sooner than later. And then the next step is the alleged trustee goes to auction, usually at the courthouse steps, and they auction off your property. And they're auctioning off basically the title to your property and the liens that go along with it. So you have an auctioneer, right, auctioning off your property. This has to be public, or made public at least, where the public can participate in buying off your home after so many years of making payments. And then somebody does purchase that auction, does make an offer, a bid on it, and does purchase it. And next thing you know, you have that new party coming and knocking on your door and asking you to move out, and a time frame for you to move out. If you don't move out in that time frame, then the next part of this comes into play, which is called the eviction process. So in some states, they send this, the new owners of your property, send it directly to the sheriff's office, and the sheriff comes out and puts a notice of eviction on your door, and you only have maybe 5 to 14 days to quit the property, to leave peacefully and turn over the keys to the new owner. In other states, you have what's called an unlawful detainer action, which has to be filed against you when you've remained in the property. And that can take anywhere between, 3 months to a year, depending on the state, again. And so that process is basically the same, where notice is given to the sheriffs, the law enforcement, and they come out to the property and physically remove you and your family from the property. So what's wrong with this scenario? Well, first of all, our financial situation today in the year 2024 is very, very closely related to what it was back in 2007, 2008 with the big financial crisis. This in the sense that liquidity has gone away. Banks are not lending. Many of them are hoarding money. They're hoarding government money as well. They're not lending it out very easily. And if you don't have full documentation, which means that you can prove all of your income on a loan application, usually called a 1003 Uniform Residential Loan Application, if you file to get a loan, they are not approving them, simply because you do not qualify with the income you have and the expenses that you have. Basically, they use the rule of thumb of anywhere between your mortgage payment being no more than 28 to 33% of your income, your gross income. Okay, now that, if you're considering a payment of $4,000, would mean that you have to prove at least $12,000 a month income to be able to qualify for one of these loans. And very, very few families right now are in that position to qualify. So what does that mean ultimately? You're going to lose your home and you're going to be evicted. And we're starting to see these evictions now and the consequences. We've seen different homeowners saying they're not going to go, it'll only be over their dead bodies, and they're taking arms right now and they're protecting themselves and their homes, and they're having to face off with the law enforcement that arrives at their home. This is terrible. It's a terrible situation in the United States and around the world. And as you all know, Americans do have a right to bear arms in their property and defend themselves and their property. So we're going to see more of that, unfortunately, more seniors than anything, senior American families saying, no, they're not going to take us alive. They're not going to steal our property, which we fought for, which our ancestors fought for, and we're going to see more of these violent situations. Now, we also have situations where the homeowners are sitting back in their home waiting for that moment with a tank of gasoline next to their side, and when they come in, they pour the gasoline over themselves and light themselves on fire. That's happening, and you're not seeing it in the mainstream press, and you won't see it because the powers to be behind it don't watch to see the reality of what's happening in the United States right now. Now, just to give you a reference, since 2008, 1 million homes have been foreclosed on and the families evicted from their homes of probably 10, 20, 30 years or more. That's the situation, that's reality that the mainstream media will never tell you. All right? So you're welcome to spread this video make it go viral, tell your neighbors, tell everyone you know what's going on. Now, is there a way to stop this? Yes, there are many ways. First of all, your governments, local and state, should try to help you financially. Look at your situation, you file with them an application, and they should be able to come forward with money to maybe get you caught up, the arrearage on your loan right now. They have the way to do it. They have the means to do that, okay? I know different states, New York, California, I know they're helping their homeowners stay in their homes and their families. That's one way. The second way is stop collecting all property taxes on all properties across the United States so that our organizations, Actions for Justice or Americans Against Foreclosures, can build a fund. We're a nonprofit organization. We can create a fund right away to help all homeowners across the United States. We would do this in the next election if our representatives and our members across the United States are elected to public office. We would make that the number one priority to stop all foreclosures and evictions in the United States immediately. We dig into the US Treasury, we set aside a certain amount of money that we would need. We'd create our own lending institutions on a state and county level even, and be able to bail out our homeowners, not the banks, not the financial institutions, not them anymore. We've seen what happened in 2008 when the Obama plan went into effect, and all those programs, the home affordable modification programs, and all these programs were put out there, and they bailed out the banks. They gave the banks the money, and we know that their CEOs were flying their jets around the world. That's where the money went. So that will not happen again. If we are elected to public office, our organizations would immediately dig into the Treasury, get an approval from Congress, set aside this money to help all our homeowners in the United States that are in financial need right now, and bail them out, help them out, give them a fresh start. Now, there's many ways of doing this. We can cancel their notes totally. We could take over their notes and put them into payment plans that they can afford, not unrealistic numbers of $2,000, $3,000, and $4,000 or $5,000 a month, which is not realistic. We would also work with all of the homeowners right now, and the landlords as well, and the tenants, to try to keep them in their homes and find the financial way to have enough sources of income and funds for them to stay in their homes, to repair their homes, to update their homes, to improve their living conditions, and work with the people directly, with the homeowners directly, with the landlords directly. No more banks, no more intermediaries. We don't need them. All they do, and we've seen this, is look at their profits at the end of the line. Yes, they put you in a modification, paying 1% or 2% for 6 months. Then the next year it goes up and it goes up and it goes up over the 5 years, and you're back to paying anywhere between 5 and 10% in interest, which goes to their pockets. This has to stop. Yes, we can continue to live in a capitalist society, but within reason. Your home is private property, and according to the U.S. Constitution, you should not be having to pay property taxes on private property. Once you've paid for that home, it's yours. Why are they charging you? Once you pay off your car, your vehicle, it's yours. Every year, do you have to pay property taxes on your vehicle as well? You have to pay registration and fees. We understand that. But you don't have to be paying the government on property taxes. So that would all stop. And we're willing to come forward and take care of this situation for homeowners. So get this video out. We have two organizations working with you right now. One is called Actions for Justice, created in 1998. It's one of the largest civil rights organizations in the world. We're trying to set up our own private news network, so we don't depend on any public money. We depend solely on the contributions and donations of our members around the world. In the United States, we want to have at least 50 Americans Actions for Justice centers, as well as Americans Against Foreclosure centers. And then 3,300 counties, I believe, in the United States. We want to have one in each county as well, to be able to reach out to our members directly to them. And then on a worldwide level, we're trying to network up our Actions for Justice, which we go by the initials AXJ, websites and centers around the world to be able to reach out and help those individuals too that need our help in different countries around the world. But what are we doing? Basically, we're bypassing the financial institutions that have so far controlled our destiny, controlled the situation, the financial situation of the world in 2024. All the capitalist systems right now in place with the 1% billionaires controlling it and structuring the way they see fit for them and for their pockets, not for the betterment and improvement of mankind and of the human being, reaching out directly to the individuals that need our sources of funding, that need not only money, but they need technology, they need improvements, they need all this that would work closely with our companies that we approve and we work with closely to get everything from raw materials and resources out to them to finished products, which they need at the best price possible, lowest price possible, and the best quality. And that would also include other human rights, such as Medicare in the United States is a human right, medical coverage is a human right, housing is a human right. We know there are many politicians right now in Congress that are thinking about what is the future of America look like, North America, South America, Central America, and what does our future look like in general. Now, we do tend to be very close with some of the politicians, which they call leaning left or center, or all these ideas that they've created, political ideas. But basically, it comes down to what America, North America, the American Revolution created for the American people and the rest of the world. As an example, that the human being comes first. We come first, not the corporations. We are not corporations. We are human beings. And therefore, we have the right, the human right, the civil and political rights to demand this from our governments and from our congressional representatives and our state representatives, our senators and congressmen. So if you like what we hear, please donate to our organizations, AXJ or Americans Against Foreclosures, which goes by the initials AAF. You will find us on the internet 24/7, 365 around the world. One of our main websites is at axj.n as in November U, axj.nu. And we have, I believe, 300,000 visits, and we want to make that 1 million visits very soon. But please donate to us, whatever you can afford, $5, $10, $100, but anything so we can start bringing on the people we need to know to be able to do this. We're going to bring on all the legal experts, be it attorneys, paralegals, to structure the different lawsuits that we're filing against all the main lenders and servicers that have started this conspiracy against the American people since back in the year 2000. Even before that, with the creation of the Mortgage Electronic Registration Systems, MERS, which is the biggest disaster in all of this field, claiming to be the assignee of all these alleged loans that are out there and notes, which have proven to be fraudulent. These loans, there's all robo-signing documents, which are fraudulent documents, notaries that had passed away, notaries that didn't exist. The documents are not valid in the courts of law, but yet our Department of Justice is failing us. Every day it is failing us. Our members are filing lawsuits in state and federal courts against them, and the judges are looking the other way. We've had to recuse many judges now because they have a financial interest in these financial institutions. They also are human beings. They also are homeowners. They've purchased property. They have loans with these banks. And instead of recusing themselves, they are rendering judgments that are totally fraudulent. And this goes up to appellate courts. Appellate courts are rubber stamping them. They're not looking at anything. They're not doing anything. It's going up to the United States Supreme Court even. And this is the most disgusting part of it at all. The United States Supreme Court is not standing with the people. It's not supporting the people. It's supporting the corporations. And corporations can die as far as we're concerned, because they have been stealing everything that American people have worked for all these years since the revolution started back in 1773 in Boston, Massachusetts, when the American people were there in the Bay watching the Americans dressed as Indians throwing the tea into the what's called the Boston Tea Party. Why? Because they did not want to pay the British Empire any more taxes. So Americans should not be paying anybody any more taxes. And that's the reality here. They tax us enough as it is, and enough as it is. Enough is enough. So if you like what I'm telling you, and you like what you're hearing from me and all of our organization right now, we do have thousands of members across the United States and across the world that seem to share our same thoughts. The people are number one. We the people. And our goal is to stop all wars around the world, all conflicts, which only benefit a few, a minority. This whole system of militarization and of creating arms of mass destruction and of killing one another, that only favors a small minority of the human beings on this planet. And I believe we're getting close to 8,000 million of us. So thank you so much, everyone. Stay well, look for us, search for us, donate to AXJ, Actions for Justice, and yourselves take actions for justice. Let us know what's going on. Contact our members. Let us know. And Americans Against Foreclosures, we salute you for your hard work as well. Thank you, everyone. Stay well now. Bye-bye.